Okay, so now we have Piper. He's going to help us make a video. Come over here, buddy. All right. Good job. So hey guys, Justin Dunn here, American Mustang School, and today's video is Law of Correspondence. This is a pretty cool one. What I want to help you understand is mind, body, spiritual connection, mind, body, spirit, and the connection, the correspondence, and how important they are. Your outer reflects your inner, so what you're doing is a reflection of your thinking. In horsemanship, we get to practice this law. It's pretty cool. You get to see it in real time. Whatever this horse is reflecting in his body is what he's thinking internally. Based on knowing that law, we get to implement it to discover the horse and myself. And I'll explain that. So there's two selves, if we think about it. Me, my inner self, me, my outer self. So two selves. Whatever I'm doing is reflecting what I'm thinking, so the horse picks up on that. The other laws do apply in this, but we're going to talk about law of correspondence, how that works. So in explaining two selves, you've heard of ego, and I just recently heard that ego stands for earth-guided only. So an ego self and then a higher self or a spiritual self or a sacred self. Higher and lower in thinkings of self. So as above, so below. If you've never heard that, that's a pretty cool one too. So whatever we're thinking and doing, we're becoming. And if I want my outer self, how the world perceives me, to be something, I have to understand my inner self or how I perceive myself, and then how far apart those two things are. So whatever I'm thinking and doing, I'm becoming. Whatever this horse is thinking and doing, he's becoming. Now, what I really want to share with you a little bit later in this video is the sixth sense. Obviously, you could discover your five senses just sitting there thinking about them, taste, touch, see, smell, hear. Horses have that too, but they also have a sixth sense, a spirit, a spiritual guide sense. And that's where you gather information that is unseen. The brain doesn't hold all of that. The brain can access it. But until you just know about it. And I'm going to go into that too. So the soul, let's talk about a soul and what that is. I'll explain it from my point of view and how I've kind of understand it up to my 48 years here on earth. The soul was in a place before it got given to me, or before I got given a body, or the soul was given a body. Where it was being served. It couldn't serve, so it needed a body to go and serve. So coming to earth, and I'll summarize this, we can go into more depth if you want. Coming to earth, it gets something new. It gets to serve. The body is its vessel to serve. So in mind, body, spirit, and the correspondence, it's how the spiritual element can come into the earthly element. And that's just my opinion. My soul was being served. Now that it got a body, it gets to serve. So you could kind of think of it as coming to earth. It was maybe broken into pieces, and as you go through earth, thinking and doing and becoming, you're piecing back your soul. And then when the body dies, the soul goes back to where it was with something it didn't have before. And we can go into that too on a whole nother topic. But just a brief overview. It's like, okay, so why even do all this? Mind, body, spirit, understand the laws of the heavens and the earth and how they apply to what we're doing, and how do we discover them to do what we do? Why? Well, you've got to learn the game of life. You've got to learn how to not get hurt and how to benefit. And there's a big difference in knowing about something and actually knowing it. A lot of people that I've talked with and corresponded with, they know about a lot of things, but they don't actually know them because they never had conscious contact or experience with it. So horsemanship, practicing horsemanship. A lot of people could read a book on how to train a horse and do all these things with horses. They can never really understand horsemanship until they have conscious contact with a horse, experience it with a horse, abide in those laws of nature that this horse abides in, and apply them, feel them, think them, do them, become them. That's the know. That's how you get in the know. So you've heard of spirit, mind, body, spirit. What is spirit? Well, it's energy. It's how you get to experience thinking and doing. It's where that energy comes from. Horsemanship helps us see that, feel that. And I'll go into that later in this video. So giving you an understanding of Piper, he's an individual that I had to make changes for. I would do things with him and feel like I was, failing at something. And he's one of those that taught me, hey man, a failure is just looking at something and gaining information. It's actually priceless information of how to not do that again and become better and do something different. If I had trained horses and every horse I come into contact with, it was no challenge, it was just easy, I would get bored. I know me, I know myself, I would get bored. Piper presented a challenge that I had to overcome because a lot of horses would do certain things that I would ask them to do, but he would not. And I quickly realized, okay, I've got to be willing to change. This is a priceless piece of information that Piper is sharing with me, how to become better. So in observing my mental and emotional states and presenting through attitude and action outward to this horse, he would reflect back to me what he was thinking. So it's like a give and receive relationship. I give something to him, he gives something back, I receive information, I give something to him, he receives information. It's a circular feedback loop that we're developing. Now, law of correspondence is really cool in a lot of ways because it shows you on a macro scale like universe, it shows you on a micro scale like atoms in our body. So horsemanship is kind of like a micro scale of a relationship with our creator, the one who spoke both of us into existence. On a micro scale, we're going to present ourselves to something, i.e. the horse, and we're going to get instant feedback. And then we can make changes, present again, to get the most desirable outcome. Now, based on law of vibration, what we think of those determines our reality. If I think this horse is kind, or if I think kind thoughts, I'm going to present kindness to the horse. He's going to receive that and present it back. If I think the alternative of that, then I get the alternative of that. It's on a scale of, say, 1 to 10, 10 being the highest scale, like kindness or gratitude or love, peace, enlightenment, mastery, or going down into the ones of like anger, shame, guilt, those emotions we don't want. In playing with a horse on a micro scale, microcosm, you get to really experience in real time and experiment and make changes instantly, observe feedback, make changes instantly, and do it again, reciprocate through law of repetition. So without going too far off track, I want to explain law of correspondence allows us to observe mental and emotional state, and then we gain an understanding of why our situations and circumstances happen in our life. So with horses, we get to actually practice that. Horsemanship, the practical application with an accountability partner that'll help us see it and feel it and do it. Well, as we think and do, through cause and effect, we get to present to our horse, we get to observe feedback, make changes, and do it again. We get into this feedback loop, and we gain levels of understanding. Everyone's at different levels of understanding. Wherever we're coming from to this horse can adapt to that and give us a kind of a good bearing on what level we're at. I designed that 5 levels of communication to do just that. We've got to have an established baseline. So we've got to groom for mindset. We've got to go inward and see what it is we're thinking, what it is we're feeling, and then, vibrating at a frequency, and then present through an attitude or an action to the horse and observe feedback, make changes in those, and do it again to get an understanding. So in just brushing a horse, what is my hand doing? What am I thinking? What is my hand doing? As we start to do this, we develop over time an ability or an awareness. What am I thinking, and how is it affecting my outward world, really? But through action. Is it a positive or negative? Is it creating circumstances I want? Or what I am, is it creating those circumstances or not? It's basically you decide how you want to experience something based on your thoughts about that particular thing. So I want to create a calm, quiet, thinking horse and come with me to help me accomplish a mission of helping other people. Here at American Mustang School, we get all walks of life to come in here. Piper's had hundreds of people engage with him, ride him, and become better people with him. So we're actually doing things with the horse, not to the horse. And that's exactly what law of correspondence shows us. Things that happen in our life, they're not happening to us. They're happening for us. They're actually things that direct us into growing and developing into a higher intelligence, or at least have a higher intelligent expression. So that's what we want. And horses, man, when they see that's what you're trying to do, they come to that. They come from a place of being served to serve. So horses, yeah, we look at it as like we're serving them. We're servant leaders. That's a good thing. But to include them into our relationship and allow them to feel that they are serving a higher purpose, when they realize that's what it is, they jump on board quick. They definitely want to help with that. Then your feedback loop is like an affirmation. It's like, okay, I'm thinking something, I'm doing something, and I'm presenting something. And going through the 5 levels of communication with horses, we get to practice that. And we're discovering the horse, we're discovering ourself. The horse is discovering us, and he's discovering himself in the human element. So this law of correspondence becomes very clear. Now, when we max out on our 5 senses, I almost said 5 levels, which is kind of one and the same, sort of. When we max out on our 5 senses, where we can only do so much of through feel, through this physical form, this body, and his physical form, his body, we've maxed that out. So we've got to gather more information from somewhere. Well, that's where that comes into that spirituality. You will tap into, because you're in total alignment, he's in total alignment, you're moving at a higher level of consciousness, you will attract what you are. So if you are in an enlightened state, you will attract enlightenment. If you are in a peaceful state, you will attract peace. If you are in a frustrated, angry state, you will attract frustration and anger. And that's one extreme to the other, just to give you, for convenience, an example. This horse standing here quiet and relaxed is his character. And it's been through a lot of communication to create this result in real-time present. The law of correspondence tells us if we think in the past and we drag something that we don't want up to here in the present and present that to this horse, there's going to be a change. Law of cause and effect. We haven't got to that yet, and that's one of my really favorite ones. But it's the next one, so watch for that video coming soon. But when we bring something from the past, maybe it was a failure that we labeled failure with another horse, and we bring that up into this present, we present that to him, he might not even have been alive when that took place. So the power of that change in thought, change in action, that memory from the past, the power of that, you get to see it in real time. You get to see that law of correspondence actually happen. Because whatever your inner reality is, it'll present outer and become your reality. So if you're thinking of something bad and it causes you to cringe, I'll just say that is because you've grown and you've developed into something way better. That's the only reason that happens. Move beyond that and understanding that you are better and you have become better. But going back to, if you grab something from the past and it causes you to cringe, and you bring that up and you present that to the horse, he doesn't know necessarily that. What he does know is your vibrational frequency changed, the law of vibration. Your thought energy changed, your actions changed. Well, just as easy as that happened, you could bring yourself into this moment and have gratitude, thankful. Well, like, oh man, I'm so thankful to be here with this horse. That just changed your inner reality. And you presented something that would attract what it is you want. This horse would be grateful that you're here in the present with him doing that. Well, if you go into the future, it's the same thing as the past. So let's just focus on this law of correspondence in the present. I'm here. I am here right now, 100% engaged with the horse. He is here, 100% engaged with me. How long is that sustainable? Well, when we practice this, it becomes really easy. What is easy? Something we can do. You may have to work hard at doing that. And law of repetition and a lot of the other laws apply. Law of compensation. It takes the time it takes, and you'll get what you are intending to get. So with Piper, I'll ask him to come back over here. He's kind of drifting off his ground tie. So it's just something as simple as I'll think something and cause with an action. So I'm going to think him to back up, and I'll ask him through action. Just a little bit of a energy here on the rope. We'll ask him to just back his hooves, and we'll come back to where we were. I'm getting back one more step. Release that pressure as a thank you. Ground tie. Rub him to a stop. I presented to him what I had thought through action, and then release that to trigger a body responsive relaxation in both of us. So we're synchronizing our energies, our thought energy, our physical energy, our spiritual energy. That is harmony and balance in the feedback loop. That is flow state. That is where we want to be. Now, disengaging to follow my notes and talk to a camera, he picks up on that too. That's that law of correspondence. Whatever my internal is, my internal reality, notes and camera, I'm disengaging from the present, 100% present engagement with the horse. Something changes. They pick up on that because they can measure it. Just like us, same thing. Away from the horse, we'll have these abilities because we exercise them with practicing horsemanship. We have these abilities to do it elsewhere in our relationships with our spouse, or our children, our supervisor, anybody, any person, any relationship. We'll have abilities in our wealth, in our health, in our happiness. Anything that comes along in life on a macro, bigger scale can be practiced here in a micro scale with the horse. That's why horsemanship works so well in self-healing, because we get to discover ourself with an accountability partner that allows us to make these necessary changes, practice them. Safe place to make a mistake because we follow rules. We never force the horse to submit with pain or fear. We don't interrupt his thought process. We don't interrupt his body of connecting and harmonizing and balancing and thriving, sustainment of life. It's a really beautiful thing to be able to understand these laws of nature that these guys abide in. They abide in those laws, and they thrive in them. They sustain life for a long, long time. In practicing horsemanship, these laws become very clear and very easy to understand. It's a difference between knowing about these laws of the universe, laws of nature, the ordinances that govern the heavens and the earth, and knowing them. The difference between knowing and knowing about. It's kind of like this particular individual. I know him. Other people, I could tell them about him, like this video. I can tell you all about him, and you'll know about him. You just won't know him until you get conscious contact with him and implement and practice what I speak of. So it's a really beautiful thing in self-discovery and self-mastery. Whatever you're thinking, your thoughts, whatever you're feeling and emotion, whatever your attitude is and action, that is internal reality, external reality, and you attract what you are. That is the lesson in law of correspondence. you can also use that to your advantage. So if you're having something go wrong or you've labeled it wrong in your life, that law says, hey, I can correspond differently by thinking differently about said thing. Let's use a relationship maybe that you have with someone, and it goes sideways. Not anything that you feel like you did. Well, that's okay. Sometimes the law of correspondence says sometimes when a relationship, is over, that allows you to get back on the right path. That person was not supposed to be in your life, so you shouldn't have any guilt or feelings of those low scale of 1 to 10, those low level feelings of where it's going to bring your self down. And that is law of correspondence, where you have a ability to think, analyze your thoughts, and think different thoughts. You can also do in the body. You bring your body up in a posture that already tells your brain something. When you're sitting on a horse's back and you're slouched and you bring your posture up, it tells the horse something. Something changes. A lot of people are unconsciously aware of a lot of things they do, but the horse is consciously aware of it. And that's why they're the best accountability partner. So if I'm feeling in a low state on that scale of 1 to 10 and I'm riding the horse, like this particular horse, I'm getting ready to tell you a story about this. Something changes. If I consciously say, hey, I'm going to sit up in my seat, then something changes. He picked up on that. If I think and do in the moment, I have a better connection, and then we're flowing in the feedback loop. If my mind drifts off somewhere, something changes. So I'll give you a little story. I was riding this horse in the neighborhood. I was towing 2 people behind me, students. We're on a level 5 ride. We're getting into feedback loop, so not a lot of talking is going on. However, in that state, my mind drifted. It went, I don't even recall where it went, but it went away from the present moment. So I basically turned into pack equipment from his perspective, and he might have asked a couple of questions. I wasn't there to give him inputs, so he did what any horse would do, is think for himself. He's like, well, I got to survive, so I'm going to do what I need to do. Well, his thing was to get my attention back on him. So he turned up a person's driveway and went and got into this big giant bush that they had and just stood in the bush. And it happened very quickly to the point where it's like, whoa, where am I? And I came back and I'm like, Piper, get out of their bush, and hoping that they don't run out of the house, be like, hey, get out of my yard. What are you doing? Well, the people that were with me were laughing and asking, what are you doing? And I simply just explained, look, my mind drifted somewhere else. Piper did something subtle or obvious, in this case obvious, to bring me back to the present. Whatever I'm thinking internal, I'm presenting external. And he wanted 100% engagement, or at least when he engaged, he wanted a feedback. So he presented something. I wasn't there. He had to do something to get my attention back to there. That is the law of correspondence, and it's a beautiful thing. That's a micro scale of it. So now we go into the sixth sense, the spiritual energy, this piece that gives us the power to make change, to affect change, to really realize that, wow, outside of us, there's information we have access to. We can align here in thought and emotion, attitude and action, and then attract what we are. So if we are peace, we will attract peace. If we are anger, we'll attract anger. That is that spiritual peace that we're tapping into. It's energy available to us all. And I will say, on that scale of 1 to 10, those peace, love, kindness, those energies are easier to maintain for longer periods of time. I had it explained like this, man. When you get angry, you got to really try to stay there. And that's hard. It's like doing something you know you're not supposed to be doing in fear of getting caught doing it. It's harder to stay there. So it's a lot easier. And you've got to kind of think about where you are right now in your life. You probably do more good than bad, because it's just easier to operate there. However, outside influences can really bring us, if we're not consciously aware of what's going on, can bring us into a state of being where we operate there, and it's draining. It's draining in your mind, your body, and your spirit. It brings you down into a shell of a person sometimes. And in order to come up and out of that, you've got to think different. You've got to do different. And you've got to understand these laws of nature and put them to use in your life for benefit. Horsemanship allows us to practice that. Horsemanship allows us to see in real time an effective thought change, action change, and a result. And then we're building a relationship. We're seeing an effect that is nurturing the relationship into something that we want and need and what we are. So this horse is very comfortable. He's very kind of clingy. He wasn't always that way, but we created that over time. And that's what it takes. So it's like an affirmation of, okay, I'm on the right track. Good job, Justin. Keep going. If something repels this horse from me, then it's an indicator of like, okay, we got off track. Not a big deal. Don't be hard on yourself. Make a change. Present again. It's so fast. It happens faster than can even be explained in a lot of instances, especially when you're in, levels of communication on the ground. Things are happening. Trying to explain that is so slow. But actually thinking and doing, it doesn't look fast to somebody watching, but a lot of things are transferring back and forth and circular. So whenever you transfer from the ground to their back, it's even more acute, and it could be faster, but it's more acute in the regard of you are now in a position to where you can get direct communication, a direct link up, total engagement, flow in a state of being that you think and do, make changes to stay there, flow state. The feedback loop, and on a micro scale with a horse, it can be macro with the universe. You can be in flow state with the entire universe, nature, your one source of infinite intelligence, of whatever you call it. That is a beautiful thing. I happen to have accessed information I know I otherwise never would have, had not aligning in the four things I can control, which are thought and emotion, attitude and action, present to the horse or to the world, and attract what I am. So that's really important. I want you to know what happens in gaining that awareness or mastery of self, and tapping into that sixth sense, that spiritual energy that's available to us all, but only if we're worthy to receive it. You might have heard things like, when the student is ready, the master appears. You're not going to be given something you're not worthy of. You're definitely not going to attract something you're not. And the ability to change that is a superpower, because you can change. And that is what horsemanship is revealing to us, that we can change. We are engaging with a horse to positively influence and transform our internal state and our mind, our emotions, our attitudes, and our actions. It's a beautiful, beautiful thing. I really wanted to share that with you guys. Piper, stay right here. I want to flip this board. My book that I wrote, it'll help you understand this. You'll know about these things, and that's like the first step. Know about it so that you can actually head that way to discover in knowing. That book helps me to this day. We just reached our 1-year anniversary of my book, A Horse to Guide Me. And I'm just now, I have kind of not done this intentionally, go back through my book too much. I'm going to this year go back through my book and reread and kind of rediscover maybe of what it was when I was in that present state of writing those words. Law of correspondence is a pretty cool thing, because it's the way things work together. And my book is part of me on paper, and I want to correspond with that again to see how that is in alignment with working together going forward. And also, if anything needs to be changed, maybe, because we learn and grow and we develop into something that we are not, or we enhance what we are. The thoughts you think will determine your reality. I already told you about the scale of 1 to 10. The lower levels and the higher levels, they dictate your actions. If you're in shame or guilt or regret or anger, They're going to have an effect on your action. And those things happen for you, the discovery of that, not to you. It's a real interesting when you think of it that way. I do things with this horse, not to him. And that self-healing is one of the, I hear you, I need to take a breath too, it feels good. One of those things that help us discover those 4 things within us that we can control and attract what we are. We learn how to understand the universe by understanding ourselves. We practice horsemanship to understand the horse by understanding ourselves. That law of correspondence. And I'll remind you one more time, why? It's how to not get hurt in this game of life. It's how to benefit in this game of life. And he does have a oral fixation on things, so he loves it to mess with his mouth and all that. Now, I told you earlier, I'd tell you about what the change was that I had to make for this particular horse. So I have a bitless bridle, and man, I'm just going to demo it for you. I have a bitless bridle. I know you want to be with me. You'll be with me. We got to stay over here. We're doing a camera show. Bitless bridle meaning no bit doesn't go into this horse's mouth. It is a interrupter, and I go into more depth on that on a bitless bridle presentation. But everything that I just told you in law of correspondence, the bitless bridle plays into the law of correspondence. It's not going to interrupt our feedback loop. It's not going to interrupt his thoughts, his emotions, his attitude, his action. Anytime that we cause pain or irritation or obstruction, that will cause the horse, don't knock my microphone because it'll make noise on that. It'll cause the horse to rebel. Yeah, definitely would create resentment over time, but it'll cause the horse to rebel. If I'm constantly causing him pain or irritation or obstructing him in connection with his own mind and body in this feedback loop with me, it'll create resentment at least, but rebellion at worst. And if you don't know horses or about them, rebellion is not what you want in horsemanship. You want them to want to be with you, not want to run away from you. You want them to allow you to ride them, not buck you off. So those are extremes on one way or the other, so you can get an understanding. So in putting this bridle on him, I had to change. Every horse I've ever bridled, I could bridle this the same way. This particular horse, no, he does not allow me to do that. He suffered some sort of trauma before I got him in his head pertaining to his ears, and he will not let us. We have to ease into touching his ears. If I touch his ear, he's like, used to in the old days, if I even reached for his ear, it was something so traumatic that he would respond in a runaway. I had to create draw, like, stay with me. You can stay ground tied and I can touch your ears. It took a long time, law of compensation. But to get to it, I bridle all my horses. I'll run my hand through their ears and I'll hand this to myself and I'll bring this on. So, not to, well, you can kind of see, he's like, no, I don't like that. And I'm thinking, okay, I could force this. I could take him and make him, or I could change and I could present something to him that he would be willing to do. So I designed this bridle, by the way, and he lets me halter him, no problem. So I'll halter him with my bridle, and I'll just put this on his nose. He don't care about that. He actually likes it being messed with his face. Now going over his ears, I'll just place it on his ear, and he kind of throws it in for me, and then we buckle it up, and we're good. Now, I had to make this change, and I had to discover this over periods of classes with him and sessions. And I would get frustrated, guys. I would get frustrated with him. And so when I would think in frustration, my actions would change. My vibrational frequencies would change. He would pick up on that. And it just would get more chaotic. It would get worse. I'm trying to muscle him. I'm frustrated. I move him. I yell at him. I do all these things. And this is years and years ago. This is probably 13 years ago. But it's one of those things that this particular horse caused me to feel failure. Like, I finally found a horse I can't bridle. Well, this is great. How's that going to look? Worrying about what other people think, that kind of thing. Inner turmoil, outer chaos. Inner chaos, outer chaos. So I thought one day, I was like, I love this little horse. He does everything so good. He carries kids. He does this. He does that. I need to change for him. I got to think differently and present differently. I mean, I designed the greatest bitless bridle in the world. Why can't I get that on this horse? I mean, he's going to love it if he'll just wear it. All these thoughts. Well, it just comes down to, all right, I'm going to change for him. I'm going to bridle him. What's effective for him? And you saw, it's just simple. Take it apart. He kind of throws his head in there. That was a little more violent than he usually does, but I think he knew what I was onto. But it's a matter of wash, rinse, repeat till you get an agreement between each other that's mutually beneficial to each other and doesn't interrupt the feedback loop, cause restriction in his mind, tension in his body. And then we can have a relationship that we both want. So in just that one example, I hope that you understand this law of correspondence. Whatever you're thinking internally comes outward. So he was obviously thinking internally that this bridle going over his ears was going to hurt him based on the reflections of his body. Now, I changed that by the halter doesn't do that. Doesn't cause a reflection in his body that he's thinking, thinking in association of, this is going to hurt me, this is painful, I don't like this, I got to rebel. So then I just made one little simple change, take the bridle apart and then use it like a halter. And it's fine. Now, coming off, this horse never seems to care, ever, and I could just pull it straight off and come off. So I know he's not in pain, guys. That's the point. Whatever trauma happened to him, and I have some, based on where I got him, I have some ideas, but I don't want to go back and thinking in that terms because that lowers our energy. So coming into the present now, there's something there. It may never go away. I'll make changes, present to him, and we've done this for a decade or more and had no problems. But I do have to be consciously aware whenever I go grab all the horses and I'm going down the line, bridling them up. When I come to Piper, it's like, oh, I got to change, take it apart, halter, go. There's been times where he never even lifted his head because he's used to being haltered or bridled that way. So he's accepted that as an acceptable way of doing it. And that is proof that that law of correspondence really works, because if I can keep the internal reality coming out in the external reality of the horse, giving me the information I need that is desirable to me, I can present that and keep that, and I'll make changes here in my internal, which comes to my external, to maintain it forever. So in learning this individual, I got to discover that, and we could call it master the relationship where we both gain, life enrichment. And that's the part I really wanted to share. That's a self-healing teaching that I got to go through with him on how to heal my own self. What trauma did I have in the past that caused me to think and feel and do something undesirable? And then how to change that. How to go in and change internal to present external, to have the reality I want, have the circumstances I want. So you attract what you are. It's just that simple. You don't necessarily attract what you need and want, but as we go through these videos, I'll show you that how you can do that. But you've got to become that first. Then you'll attract what you need. You attract what you are. And in order to maintain what you are, you're going to need some things. And I'm going to show you how to get that in future videos. So if you have any questions, pop them in the comments below. I'm getting a little bit better at this YouTube stuff and understanding how it works. Share with a friend, subscribe, like, all those things that we have to do. Until next time, thank you for watching. And Piper, buddy, thank you for being the star of our show today. And good stuff. So stay right there. I'm going to just turn this camera off.